Welcome, soul seekers. We have a super exciting topic today. We are going to talk about how women at the top of finance balance motherhood and business. This looks good.
It looks good. I like it.
I'm one of your soul guides, Patricia Rivera-Wolfson.
Hey everybody, welcome to Soul Seekers. I am your other soul guide, Linda Krause-Barnett, and I'd like to introduce you today to a very special friend, someone who does business like a badass. Her name is Sylvia Bonito. She is the president of Sanctuary Global Family Office and the chief investment officer for a single family that will remain undisclosed. So welcome, Sylvia. We are so glad you are here with us today, and we are going to pick your brain for all the goodies that are inside to share with our viewers.
Thank you.
So let's get started on the conversation of, someone like yourself who's playing at the highest level, who's playing with a very male environment, who's a mother who has children, and what that looks like and how to make it all work.
Sure. So I think that one of the kind of turning points for me as a professional was when I read Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. And that book in particular pissed me off. It just sounded like a miserable life. And what I took away from that book, now maybe she's changed, maybe I didn't get the message right, but what I read from it was, if you want to be successful, if you want to be at the top of an organization, then you have to make extraordinary sacrifices. So those sacrifices look like waking up at 4 in the morning to get through all of your emails. It looked like having very little time with my family. And I was terrified by that vision. I said, if this is what it takes to be able to make a significant contribution in the world through my work, I'm not sure I want that. And I think that that's what's accounting for a lot of what they call like the brain drain of women who have their children and then leave the workforce, who have, because not all women have the economic opportunity to leave the workforce, but some women do. And those women that are leaving, a lot of the times they're leaving because they feel like they've been faced with this sort of impossible choice. And that, for me was something that I struggled with quite a bit. And I think that one of the first things I started to do was just to be honest about my needs as a working mother, to not hide them from my teams that I was working with. So when I first started experimenting with this, it was like just the willingness to talk about my children in the workplace. And again, not in a like saccharine, in your face, like pictures of my kids and hear stories about them. But just to be like, let's just bring in the room back. I mean, I'm in particular, I'm a single mother, so I'm single parenting. I have 85% custody, just to give people a sense of that. So I have 85% of my children's time. So when I say I'm single parenting, it's not like a joke. It's actually single parenting.
Yep.
So the first thing I did is I just started to kind of bring to my colleagues awareness that for me, having to balance my children's lives was an important priority. And not to be embarrassed of that. That was the thing I first had to struggle with, was feeling like people would think I couldn't do as good a job if I had to balance my children. And so that honesty, like just being honest with the people you work with, like I really need to figure out balance. And you have to enlist the people that you work with to help you to find that balance. But that was really in the beginning when I first started. That was right after my divorce and I was first single parenting and working. But now I'm further along in that journey. And now that I'm in a role of authority in creating a culture and creating a company, now I realize I have the chance to rewrite the book called Lean In, because I get to dictate what the culture of the organization will be like. And so what I'm trying to do, and I don't know exactly how it will all look, but I'm trying to say that surely there's a better way. Like it can't be that we are either completely drained and exhausted, or we're staying at home and feeling like we're wasting our gifts or we're not making a contribution beyond our children. And so when I first started, especially working as the CIO for this one particular family, which they own a family-run company, when I took on that role, one of the first things I said is, I just want you to know that my intention is to figure out how to do this with complete balance. I want you to know that I need to be at my soccer practices. I need to be at their games. I need to be present for them. And they took that so seriously because they wanted to work with me, right? They took that so deeply to heart that they actually sat down with my kids and told my kids that they had a commitment that if they were going to be working with me, that I would be present in their lives. They said, we want for your mom to really be there for you. And if she's not able to be there enough for you, we want you to come back and tell us.
Oh, wow, Sylvia.
That's magnificent. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, but you have to be brave and courageous.
Yes. I was going to say, you broke a paradigm. You did things that, there aren't a million examples yet, although I feel that that's coming. And I think that this is so, so important because, my daughter just turned 12, and 12, well, I guess it would be 13 years ago, I was in the movie business and I was working in production and I was traveling, and my husband, who at the time was my boyfriend, was traveling, and, I liked being in the movie business, but he was more established. He had like a career. I was doing it because I loved it and I was trying to find my niche. But when I was ready to be pregnant, I gave it up because at the time, hindsight, right? But at the time, it seemed like, well, he's more established. I have to make the sacrifice. I have to ground. I have to get stable. I never had lifelong aspirations of teaching, but I went into teaching because it was the thing I could think of that allowed me to be on my kid's schedule, that allowed me to get off, at the same time as them, be on the same vacations as them. So everything I did wasn't based on my impact or my desires or my talents. It was based on logistics and what was the best for the family. And so it felt like motherhood meant sacrifice. And I think that needs a rewrite.
Yeah. I think motherhood does mean sacrifice from just
different kind of
experience of motherhood. But again, I wouldn't say that the day that I'll feel like I've really, really gotten this right is the day that I have 50 women working for me. Okay. Who all get to live inside of this culture, right? So right now, like, I've created it for myself. I've begun to set the tone for the people that I work with, but I would want to scale this kind of opportunity for other women, particularly in finance. There are examples like Ellevest is a financial company that's run by Sally Krawcheck. She was the former CFO of Citibank. And Ellevest is a company that, for example, allows women completely flexible schedules, allows them to work from home, and they have unlimited vacation. So they trust the women to be able to take the amount of vacation that's right for them and their family. So there are other women who are doing this. I'm just trying to do it in my own way, and I just try to do it by one statement at a time. And one of the things I think we're really pushing back against culturally is the idea of overwork as being essential to making a contribution or to being of value.
I really a million times yes to everything that you just said, even in terms of feeling like you have really succeeded once you have, 50 women with you all living that same life. And I just want to know that in your description versus the way Linda described her situation, which it was my situation too. I was in the entertainment business as well. And I just had a conversation with my son about it yesterday. And he looked at me and he said, why did you stop? And he's like, was it my fault? And I was like, no, it wasn't your fault. It was a choice that I made. And that was what I needed to do in order to get what I wanted. And I said to him, I wanted a family more than I wanted my TV career at the time. But what I really love about what you said was, whereas, then I became a coach because I was trying to, I love coaching, and that's one of the things that I love to do with people. But what Linda did and what I did was try to fit the paradigm that exists. And so, like, how can I stay home and do the things I want to within the structure of what I'm used to, right? But what I love about you, what you did and what you're doing is you said, I'm doing this, and here's what I need from you in order for this to work. And I love that. Like, you weren't afraid to ask for exactly what you needed to have exactly what you wanted. And I think that women, you know, we all need to do more of that and say, I'm good enough in what I do. You're muted, Linda.
I said we need to ask. You're right.
Yes. Like,
we don't
I'm
ask.
really good at what I do. So if you want to work with me, these are my boundaries. These are the parameters, you know, and I'm happy to give you all of me within this structure. And then everybody kind of has it all on the table. And then there's no resentment built from coming from you, because you've made your statement clear, your boundaries clear. And also the people that you're working with are super clear on what your boundaries are, so they're not going to overstep and also not resent you doing the things that you stated you were going to do.
Yes, but again, there's two pieces I would add to that. One is the piece of self-worth. So as women, we're not really taught how to have authentic self-worth. So the examples we see are somewhere between narcissism and total worthlessness. And, you know, how do you form like just a healthy sense of self-worth? Like, it's not that I'm a genius, but I have something of value that I can bring to the world. And, you know, I think that the self-worth piece is very important, but then there's also the courage, because in our culture, and again, I think this is based in large part on general worthlessness that the culture has. What we consider people, if they portray themselves as being extremely busy, then the message, the signaling that they're giving to the world is, I am important and I am worthy. I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. So for me, it still happens to me today. Most of my phone calls that I have with people in the world of finance, they will tell you in one way or another, it's the social signaling. I'm busier than ever. It's just, you know, I've got so much to do right now. And so it's really interesting how we're always social signaling that. So the thing now is, like, I have this team that I talk to in this coronavirus time, and they'll all say, you know, I've been so busy, I haven't even gone for a walk. Or in my free time, I'm just listening to financial podcasts. And I'm just trying to be brave and saying, oh, really? Well, I just went for a walk and listened to some really nice music, you know, like what in any way I can to give back the signaling that I am living a relaxed life. And I had to come to terms with that myself. I realized so much of my busyness because I hadn't constructed my life in a way that was really about self-worth. It was about performance. And I just want to break that culture. If I could break one thing about corporate culture, it's this idea that the busier you are, the longer you work, the more value you have and the better your contribution. I just think it's garbage. And it leads to a real burnout.
Which everybody's been experiencing. Like, I really think that burnout has become such a, you know, like buzzword to a certain extent in business right now, because everybody's feeling it. I mean, right now we're kind of at a standstill, but I really think that it was bubbling up as such a present concern. People truly being burnt out or having chronic fatigue or like real issues because of the way things have been done or how business has been done up until now.
And I want to just, I don't want to get off topic, but I do want to take advantage of this little spiritual tangent because you said something that had such deep resonance for me. And I just want to highlight it, that something you did that I don't know, it's hitting home so deeply right now, is that you took the energy you received and you consciously changed what you gave back. That is so important in life, in relationships, in work. And I don't mean to defer to a tangent conversation, but it feels so good that you acknowledged what came in and went, you know what, I'm going to emulate, I'm going to send a different energy in hopes that that's what will be received and the person listening can shift. Because sometimes we shift for the message we receive, but what if we can change the message that we send back and not have to capture it for ourselves? So I just, you know, you said that and it felt like, oh my gosh, like, maybe I could do that more. In what areas of my life could I apply that? Because I've never heard it said like that. And maybe subconsciously I've done it, but that was such a conscious thing that it feels really good. And I think in business, you know, especially I think a woman in a male energy, there's a lot of that exchange that isn't necessarily aligned, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's also like a kind of like complete unacknowledgement of what it means to be present in a workplace, right? So, you know, like I realized that I was basically in a deficiency of presence because I mean, it's like I would like rush to the gym so I could get my workout in, which I still do, especially once this coronavirus thing is done. I'm going right back to rushing. But that it was like I would rush to the office, and there was this way of like we have to be in the office at this certain time to look like you're doing a good job. And then like the truth is that I know that in a lot, not the organization that I'm in now, but the prior organization that I was in, which was a very, very large bank, most people once they got in their office were wasting most of the day in various forms of just non-presence and distraction, you know, just doing whatever. And so, but no, that's not questioned, because as long as you look like you're busy and you're sitting in the office, then nobody questions it. So I really would love to like revolutionize the culture of working to say, imagine how effective we would really be if we worked in these strong spurts of presence and then we rested. And so that way, when we go home to our children, there's some presence left for them. Because otherwise it's like the end of the day, I mean, I don't have anything left for the kids.
And I love that you said deficiency of presence. Like, oh my gosh, that needs to
That
be
was
hashtag all over the world. Because
yes.
I think that's the epidemic. That's what I think is a deficiency of presence. And I think to replace that with an abundance of presence then changes your experience and your reality, right?
And
To be present at work. Like it's a different energy that we ask for. We ask for the energy of like doing, like do. And very rarely do you actually sit with someone and come into like being present and then really tune into what needs to be done. It's just
absolutely. Even when you're, you know, in meetings, like, you know, in a business environment, it's like you have to be prepared for what's coming, as opposed to allowing yourself to just hear the information that's unfolding and then responding intuitively based on what you already know, obviously. And that actually brings me to a point, because we have met before and we talked a little bit, and your path that you followed and then went into finance is so unbelievably inspiring to me. And it was, you know, your story about your expansiveness and, you know, sort of like your search for enlightenment and your journey, and then taking that and going into finance. So can you please speak to that a little bit? Because
yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of reverse engineered into a financial career. It wasn't my first career. My first career, I really was basically, I started a school of healing arts in South America. I worked as a healer, and I was only and totally obsessed with awakening for all of my 20s. And it was at the end of my 20s, I went to India for an extended period of time and had a really deep awakening experience, and thought to myself, well, great, you know, I'm going to just live in India, and I look good in a sari, and I like Indian food. It's cheap here. Like, this is great. And then I kind of, as that awakening deepened in me, I kind of had more and more of a sense that there was like almost like a karma to fulfill, which in Hindu culture is like there was a part of my destiny that I still had to live out, and I couldn't just stay in India, that I would be avoiding this path that was waiting for me. And I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, because it was going to be about embodying that awakening, that the awakening would become connected to, you know, money, power, sex, family, marriage, children, these like really the human experiences which challenge us. I had to take all this magical awakening experience and somehow weave it into these other you know, like teachings, or like the curriculum of life, I guess I would call it. And I knew that money in particular was going to be an important part of the curriculum. And I had to learn to work with money to see if I could bring the energy of awakening to money, which at the time seemed like an absurd concept, because I didn't even know the difference between a stock and a bond. You know, I could have told you like every single Hindu god, but I didn't know the difference between a stock and a bond. So I did come back, and I became, within 6 months of returning from India, I was a financial advisor, and then I eventually just kept progressing and worked with a hedge fund and got my CFA charter, and then, you know, I just developed myself, had children, got married, got divorced, did the human things. It was really only the past 2 years of my life that I actually began to understand how do you bring awakening and money together. It took me a while.
I know that the last time we talked, you were saying that you really had to master finance and learn the ins and outs of finance, how it exists in this current paradigm. And I think that that's really important, because so many people are trying to change, and we talked a little bit about that before. So many people are trying to change things from the outside, but it's just as important to be infiltrated on the inside to also make the change from within the paradigm and learn how it functions, so that then you can make the changes from that side. And that was something that you said that you really focused on.
Yeah, it was important to me. Like I wanted to be invited to Davos. Like I didn't want to be on the outskirts. And so it was important that I learned to work from the center. And I would say in many ways I am still doing that. I'm working from the center. I'm not really working from the edges.
I think it's like self-love is a lot like that too. Like, you know, when you learn it and you learn mindset, you learn self-love, you know, we take our weaknesses and we learn and we learn and we learn. But like what you said, it's the integration. Can you integrate it back? Can you apply it into your life? Whether that's love or business or motherhood, you know, it's great to awaken and enlighten and practice, but how can I apply it every day, day in, day out, for the easy and for the hard, for the business and for the mom parts of me? Because I feel like if I try to isolate and just apply it to one area, then I kind of twist. It's like a hose, you know, like there's a twist here, then the water doesn't flow through the whole hose. And so I feel like what you're teaching me through this conversation as well is that integration of just allowing the whole being to flow and open, so that it's just a stream. There's no kink, there's no tightness, you know, because you're so busy here that so busy in business we can't be moms, or so focused on being mothers that we can't be really successful at business.
Yeah, I think it's just about willing to be uncomfortable in the end. Like, you know, that when I gave birth to my kids, I chose not to use what do you call it, epidural. I didn't do that stuff, and it wasn't because I was like against it. I was just curious, like what would happen if I didn't. And in the height of the pain, there was just this moment where I realized, like, oh, if I turn towards this pain, things are going to go so much better. And if I turn away from it, things are going to get stuck. And that became kind of this great lesson for me, is like, I'm not perfect. Like, I have all kinds of stuff I'm learning and dealing with constantly all the time, like literally day in, day out. I'm impatient with my kids. I am arrogant. I'm not always a great friend. You know, my ex-husband would have a long list of things he would tell you are wrong with me. But it's like, that's the curriculum that is about the embodiment of awakening. Because it's really, if you say, Sylvia, we're going to go hang out in a silent retreat, I've done easily 40 silent retreats in my life. Easily. I'm good in the silent retreat. Okay, I love it.
Wow.
Silent retreat, I'm perfectly happy.
Wow.
But take that stillness and that love that's experienced in retreat, and to somehow marry it to all these messy human parts of myself. That's, for me, that's the journey of awakening. That it's not a one moment in time thing, that it's a every moment of every single bit of time kind of thing. And I think I had mentioned to you before that sometimes I do shamanic work with people. It's like my hobby. It's like a little thing I do on the side. And I was working with a woman who was on her deathbed recently, and she was in a tremendous amount of pain, physical pain. And the work that we did was about her turning and facing the pain, even on the deathbed. And even to say that the physical pain she was facing was still part of her life's curriculum. It was like her last lesson. Mm. And so to teach her, you know, with all humility, because I've never faced that level of pain. I mean, she was like in a whole other, like, this is like pain that no drug could even touch the pain she was in. That's how much pain this woman was in. And to say, well, what if we actually turn towards it with the heart wide open? And what if we actually turn towards it with some sense of mystery or divinity or God or whatever you want to call it? What would happen? And what happened for her was magic. Her husband said to me that day he believed in magic for the first time. And for her, that was her last lesson before she was, I mean, I'm sure maybe she had another lesson right before she died. I don't know. I wasn't there when she passed away. It was very close to the time that she died. And so I try to like look at all of life like that. Like I get uncomfortable and then I face it. And so I think that's like, if you look at finance in general for women, just to like tie it all together with a pretty bow, finance is an area many women are uncomfortable in. They feel overwhelmed, they feel daunted, they feel like they don't have control. And just the very like baby step of turning, like every single time you open that computer to look at your bank statement, you should be doing it intentionally and with a prayer, and whatever part of that statement makes you feel uncomfortable, you need to face it directly, like really look at it and say, like, what is here for me? Because women are not, by and large, becoming financially literate or financially empowered because we are uncomfortable.
Oh man, you were like, you know what I love about this conversation is I have shied away from money my whole life. I grew up with not a lot of it. I heard my parents wake up in the morning and the first thing they did when they opened their eyes was they thought about money. And then I heard that conversation last every time my parents were home until our eyes closed at night. And literally that was my existence. And then to rewrite it as an adult is really, you know, well, we tell ourselves stories and we believe them because we have years and years of evidence that our brain captured to back it up. Like, no, look, you have 45 years of this. Like, what don't you understand? You're always going to be broke. But, you know, I think face your fears is something that's been said and said and said, but what does it mean? Because I'm like a kinesthetic learner. I need to see it and feel it and touch it. I can't just hear it. I'm not an auditory processor. But, you know, people who try to teach you mindset say to watch yourself, to observe yourself, you know, come from up here, don't be in it. And I think you just spoke to that, you know, like observe the fear or the pain or the resistance or whatever it is that you're up against is your lesson. So turn towards it. Don't keep, the more you run, the more it chases you. And so the minute you stop and look and go, okay, face to face, face off, let's go. You know, it just, I love that so much. And I think that there could be 12 episodes of just you because I think you have such a spiritual, you're like a spiritual sage and a financial guru. So
Thank you. But I want to just add, because I don't know who your viewers are, is that we always have to be mindful in these conversations about where we have come from. Like you said, the family legacy. And I always said, my parents didn't, I went to university on a scholarship, so I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. But, you know, I had to, this little scrappy thing had to happen on our own. But I still was given a good education and had, you know, I was given the fundamental building blocks to be able then to self-teach myself, to be able to learn what I needed to learn, you know. And I think that that's like, we have to be mindful that not everyone can come at this with the same resources or the same skills. But I do believe that every single woman can teach themselves, no matter where you're starting from. You can get from A to B to C to D if you take it one step at a time and you're patient with yourself, no matter where your starting point is from. So if I could manage now hundreds of millions of dollars, not having known the difference between a stock and a bond at 30, anything is possible.
That, Sylvia, that is like one of the greatest conversations that I have personally had in a very long time, and you just cracked another piece of my shell wide open. So I thank you for that, and I know that there's viewers like us who are experiencing what we're experiencing, and especially at this time when people are either out of work or struggling with money or have a savings account, but they're literally blasting through it just to survive. So I think that you're going to hit the hearts of so many people who watch and follow us.
Yeah, I really just hope women become financially literate, which means just learn the very basics, even if you because otherwise a lot of women end up feeling very financially disempowered, and you make all kinds of bad life choices if you feel like you're not in control of your own finances. So you guys, thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. This is such an important conversation, and I do hope that anybody who's watching, that this is something that you will, look further into for yourself, and begin, as Sylvia says, by just looking at the things that are painful about your financial situation with intention and with love, and start right there. I think that's a great place to start. And Sylvia, I don't know if there's any way that people can get in touch with you. If
people can, you can find me on Facebook and message me if you want to have, if you want any resources. I don't work with a lot of people directly, but I do have a book that I wrote that is, probably going to come out sometime not too distant future, which is about feminine awakening and how I eventually started to work with money, and it's called Permission. So one day, hopefully that book will be on people's hands. In the meantime, I hope everyone gives themselves permission for whatever they want.
I love that. And I can't wait for that book. That sounds amazing. And thank you for being with us and sharing a part of yourself with us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.